With us today, and we want to particularly welcome the governor and member of his staff here. My grandson is an avid football fan, all right, and he loved the Mountaineers, and he's only 5, but he's now a football fan, and he's always concerned if players are tough enough to really compete, okay, when they're hurt. And so when he sees when someone limps off the field, he said, well, Paw, is he really hurt? Is he injured or is he hurt? He says if he's hurt, he should be able to keep playing. If he's injured, maybe we need to take him to the hospital. Well, the governor's here today, and he's playing hurt, all right? He's under the weather. He's had to go to the doctor early this morning, but he's here. So he's showing us in the Mountaineer spirit that he can continue to play hurt, and we certainly appreciate that. Again, we want to welcome you here, and the purpose of our meeting today really is to sort of give all of you an overview of the Hope Community Development Corporation, our organization, what we do, and how we do it. And we have a fairly aggressive agenda that we're going to move through rather quickly. Here at the Grace Bible Church, they love me dearly, but I have 42 minutes on Sunday morning to do whatever I want to do. After that, everybody starts leaving. So we can do about whatever we need to do in 42 minutes in 30 seconds. But the governor does have a call. He has to make it 11:45, so we're going to move things pretty quickly. But we want to give you an overview of our organization, what we do. We want to talk specifically about some projects that we're working on in partnership with the Prestera Mental Health Services, with our good friends at the Western Division of Juvenile Services and Daymart. And we're also going to give an update on a special project that we have, the ROCKS project, that the Barnett Inc., which is an independent evaluator that's evaluating a project called ROCKS, Renting Our Communities Successfully. It's a reentry project for juvenile offenders, project that we have a very strong partnership with Prestera Mental Health Services. Mr. Bob Hanson and his crew, and they took the lead role in writing a grant, and we were successful in getting that grant. And we're going to update you on that project. And also on our alternative sentencing project, on our in-school mentoring project, and an overview of some plans that we have for Youth Development Center on the West Side, and some of you had the opportunity to tour the before site there on Central and Hunt Avenue. And then we're going to talk about an expanded project with the Western Division of Juvenile Service and Prestera, and then some other plans or visions that we have for the West Side community. Some exciting things are happening on the West Side, and some of us feel like this community has been neglected over the years, but a major project getting ready to take place. The Charleston Urban Renewal Authority is proposing to create a renewal zone on the west side of Charleston. It's over 220 acres, and it will span from North Charleston down to 2 Mile near the North Charleston Community Center. Then it will move eastward all the way to Hunt Avenue, which is a few blocks from here, and then it will go from the boulevard into Washington Street. That's a pretty large footprint, and it's a very large residential footprint, and that's why we're excited about it, because we have an opportunity to maybe bring community renewal to the west side of Charleston. And then we get an update from Mr. John Ballagy and Tim DePiro about a proposed Juvenile Justice Summit, and then Mr. Dennis Sparks is going to give us an update on a proposed Prison Correction Summit. And then I'm going to introduce you to one of the great leaders in our state that many of you don't know about, a good friend of mine, Mr. Rustin Seaman from Philippi, and he's going to talk about an exciting project that his organization is taking the lead role to implement in West Virginia through World Vision. So this is going to be a pretty, we think, informative time for you. And any time along the way, if you have a question when I'm speaking, you can interrupt me. The other people who come, they will have to give the directions to how they want to entertain questions. The first thing I'd like to do is give a brief history of Hope CDC. We began doing volunteer work back in 1987, just going to schools to volunteer to mentor youth, to see what was happening with our young people. In 1993, we expanded that program in a partnership with the Charleston Police Department. They had a grant, and they wanted to run an after-school program on the east end of Charleston. And then in 95 and 96, we've all had been doing some research about the juvenile justice system, where we wanted to see if we could make a difference and have an impact. But during that time, there was a situation involving Randy Moss, and even though he was an adult, because his attorney was a good friend of mine, and we got involved in real time in that project with an alternative sentencing plan, and by the grace of God, had some success, and that really gave us a baptism by fire of how to work with the court system and to offer alternative sentencing opportunities. we were kind of all over the place because there were so many things coming at us, and so we were trying to help small businesses, and my good friend Bob Hardy took a lead role in establishing a economic development summit, and out of that we started trying to help small businesses, and we developed some things with One Valley Bank and wrote a program called Covenant and try to help people get mortgage loans and start some businesses and had some success doing those activities. But our heart was always really with youth. We thought that was the key to turn the community around. And finally, in 1997, at the encouragement of Newt Thomas, we decided to get a 501c3 organization, which I had some resistance to. Still don't believe I should have had to do it. And I think time has proved me right. Now even the federal government recognizes that the church community should be able to engage in community development. But we were able to get the 501c3, and then we really started to formalize our programs and manualize them in a systematic way. And we worked with Governor Underwood to put together an emerging workforce summit. We did some research about the unemployment situation, particularly in rural communities and communities with high minority population, the desperate unemployment rates, and a very successful summit. We recognized for best practices with our workforce development initiatives with low-income people. And then in 2001 is when we started to hit our stride. We started to figure out how to write grants. And it took us about 4 years to really figure out how to write them to get some funding for some of our projects. And so in 2001, we were able to get some funding. We were recognized by the Washington Times Foundation as the top faith-based organization in West Virginia, representing West Virginia at the National Summit in D.C. when they were talking about the faith-based initiative. And at that same time is when we were selected by Kanawha County to be the youth service provider for the in-school component of the Workforce Investment Initiative. The Workforce Investment Act of 1998, in my opinion, was one of the most significant pieces of legislation of the 90s because it combined a plethora of workforce development programs supposedly into a seamless system. And the youth component was the most impact because it requires supposedly communities to provide year-round services for youth ages 14 to 21. So we ran that program for 3 years, and we worked with over 500 kids. We placed over 265 kids in summer jobs, and we saw some things happening. It enabled our staff to really get their pulse on the heartbeat of the youth in Kanawha County because it was a countywide project. That's when we established the Hope Youth Development Center and also what we call the Hope Youth Development Movement, which we'll talk a little bit more about, how we put all of our programs into a system whereby we decide what's most effective in working with a different population of young people. And then quickly, in 2003, we got this grant from the Department of Labor to establish the Hope Workforce Development Center, and was recognized for our efforts in that work. We also worked with the Katrina evacuees at the governor's request, and that's when we became expert on housing. My staff became experts on low-income housing, rental housing in the Kanawha Valley as we were trying to get those people placed. And then in 2004 is when we really started to forge a partnership with Prestera. Bob Hanson approached us and said, look, we might be to do some things together that we cannot do separately. And here's a grant opportunity. We come together and put the strengths of our organization, Prestera's strength and mental behavior health, substance abuse, Daymark's strength and transitional housing for kids coming out of incarceration and troubled youth, Hope's strength in terms of community-based organization with integrity at the community level and intense case management. And his grant writer put together just a fabulous grant, and we were one of the groups selected for that project. Prestera, Bob Hanson has been the best partner I've ever had in this work in terms of supporting us, in terms of helping us be what we are and who we are, and we certainly appreciate that. And so in 2006, we had conversation with the governor, and he agreed to fund a pilot project for our in-school youth development program, and then that was fairly successful and to where it was expanded to more schools. And then this year, we've acquired a building that some of you saw earlier this morning. And so our vision has been to have a youth development center in the heart of the west side of Charleston. That's a clearinghouse where we can provide services to youth and their families, where there's no wrong door. If they make it to us, then we have the burden of figuring out how to help them and how to pull together other partners together to make things work. We have a simple philosophy when it comes to youth development. We believe kids live in systems. And we believe that adults live in systems. And there's a family system, there's an educational system, a social system, a peers, community system, and an economic system. And we believe that if you're going to help young people break the cycle of poverty, if you're going to help young people catch a vision, you have to be to influence them in those systems and help them to have success in terms of connecting with education, in terms of feeling valued and having caring relationships with adults. And you've got to be there where they are as much as possible. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and how we've tried to weave our programs into the systems, not be a part of, but be a part of the systems. And it's taken us 15 years to kind of make all of the connections we need to make, but we think we're finally getting there. Just quickly, an overview of our organization of Hope CDC. We believe you got to look at family, youth development, family development, workforce development, community development. And we really believe that economic development doesn't occur in many cases because there's not the foundation for it to happen. And so we think youth and family development and workforce development is the key to create an environment, an operating system for economic development. So what we've tried to do is to focus for the last 15 years on youth development and family development, on the people development, because we believe that developing the people is the key, and developing indigenous leadership within the community where people themselves take responsibility for their destiny is a key, and that you can't just keep doing for people what they should be doing for themselves. So that's kind of the way that we operate. Under the Hope Youth Development Movement, as I said earlier, we think you have to be where the kids are. So you have to be in school because they spend 6 hours a day there minimum. It's a social system, and that's where life is making up its mind. And if young people are not having academic success, then many of them are going to drift toward some type of antisocial behavior. After school is very important because most juvenile crime happens between 3 and 8 o'clock in the evening. Structured recreation because kids got to learn how to have fun and play again. And then the other system is the juvenile justice system. In our county, 800 youth nearly appear before a judge or probation officer every year. That's pretty significant. And it doesn't take a lot of young people to create havoc for the rest of us, or a lot of people in general. There are roughly 10,000 plus people in our adult jail and correctional system. That's a very small part of our state's population, but it's a very costly situation to deal with. And so we felt that we had to have a presence in the juvenile justice system if we're going to help this community. And then on the other side, reentry of kids coming out of incarceration, and then trying to identify the kids in the community that are the most at risk for committing a violent crime or being the victim of a violent crime, and seeing if we could engage them into some type of constructive activity. And then we believe that school has to be a year-round proposition. We believe if we are serious about changing schools in West Virginia, at some point in time, we got to collectively come together and look at a year-round calendar and we have more days in school because the time on the task is indispensable to raising academic achievement levels for youth that are falling behind in the classroom. The other key component is in terms of the family development, trying to get men to sense responsibility and take responsibility for their children. People don't want to talk about what's really happening. In this neighborhood, 80% of all African American children are born out of wedlock. That's a social pandemic, unprecedented in the history of any people in this country. In 1960, 75 to 80% of all black children, regardless of socioeconomic class, were born in a two-parent household. So now we have the exact opposite. And so when you don't have a family structure where discipline and values and accountability and expectation can be passed on, reinforced, then what you end up with is basically the streets becoming the teacher of the kids. And it becomes a place where young men decide, what they believe and that type of thing. So what we're saying is the family is what it is, and we're not going to change it overnight. It took us 47 years to get here. And we're not going to have all these women with husbands tomorrow. It's not going to happen because there's too many men from this community that are incarcerated. And there are too many that are serious drug users. And there are too many that just simply don't want the responsibility of fatherhood. But the women still have the children. So the community has to figure out a way, how do we provide this network of support of caring people to try to pass on to these kids that they are valued, to try to get them to buy into the concept of education and honesty and decency and hard work as being a way of breaking the cycle of poverty. So most of what we're doing normally, we're trying to work now with families of the unit. And then, of course, the workforce development, it speaks for itself. We are a Workforce West Virginia affiliate, so we can register people for job services. We can access the stuff by the computer, and we're trying to bring the workforce investment system to the neighborhood and to the community. When you start talking about youth, we believe that youth fall in categories of a descending order of risk, and some of these are somewhat interchangeable. We believe the most at-risk kids in the community are kids who are incarcerated. As I've said on a number of occasions, I've said in a number of hearings over the last 15 years, worked with a number of young people, and I've never seen a young person that was sentenced to the industrial home that I did not agree they needed to go. I believe they had been given every opportunity in the community, but when that decision was made, I thought it was the appropriate decision. And there have been times when I felt that they should have went when we didn't send them, based on what I know, because my surveillance is sometimes more than what the people in the system might have. But we are identifying the kids, I believe, that are at risk and that are a potential danger to themselves and to others and do need to be removed and placed in timeout to see if we can help them. Then you got detained youth, court-involved youth, youth with frequent contact with the police, DHA status offenders, and so forth. You can read those. Now, why do we do this? We do this because what we're saying is that we have this diagnostic center where kids are being diagnosed with varying levels of problems. And we get it diagnosed, but we often don't have the system to apply the right remedy or treatment, if you want to use a clinical term. And we're saying if we understand where the kids are and if we can respond in the appropriate way, we may be able to divert a lot of these kids from entering into the juvenile justice system and from a life of crime. Just quickly, the in-school program that we're running, and we think it's very important. I say this every time I get the opportunity to speak, that until we figure out a way to support the efforts of the public school system, particularly for our underachieving young people, and they're normally in the lower income bracket, that we can't fix this. We can't fix it because it is a major, major problem, the fact that kids are falling behind so early and they continue to fall further and further behind. And that's why we believe that you have to have a strong presence in the schools. So our pilot project is funded from funds that the governor made available to us through the Western Division of Criminal Justice Services. We negotiated the performance measure with Secretary James Spears, and the pilot project was expanded to include this scientific evaluation. So we're working with Dr. Stephen Haas, the director of the Statistical Analysis Center. He wrote a scientific evaluation protocol. Marshall University signed off on it, and so now it's been evaluated from a scientific standpoint. And this has been wonderful for us because it's brought a lot of structure and a lot of scrutiny and a lot of accountability. And Dr. Voss and I, we've had a number of real strong arguments, but it's helping us, and we think we're helping him to understand how grassroots community-based programs really work. With that project, the criteria for selecting the schools that we chose, they were already selected. Several years ago, there was a piece of legislation, House Bill 4669, professional development schools. It looked at schools in 10 counties, a total of 30 schools that were low-performing schools, low performance on the standardized tests. At the time, it was a Stanford 9, now it's the West test. And in Kanawha County, there were several schools selected. Stonewall Jackson Middle School, Glenwood Elementary School were selected because, and Chandler Elementary School, they were selected because their test scores were consistently low. And so we wanted to be where the real challenge was. Because of the short time frame for the pilot project, January 1 through June 30 for 2006, we decided to focus on the middle schools, and we also selected a school in Huntington because they also have some real challenges in Huntington. There was Camac, and it was Camac Middle School. So we had a total of 90 students that were identified by the principals and the counselors that we would work with to see if we could help them during that 6-month period. The criteria to select the kids basically was we wanted them to select the kids they thought needed help. Kids with academic difficulty, chronic disciplinary referrals, students in the juvenile justice system, students with troubled home life, and students with an incarcerated parent. Those are the kids. And this last group, it is the group of kids that, according to the Justice Department, is the most likely to end up incarcerated. 70% of all children with an incarcerated parent will end up incarcerate themselves sometime in their life. So that's why they're a targeted group as well. So we negotiate these performance measures, and we start working with the kids. We wanted to recruit volunteer mentors that could support our efforts. We have a structured, research-based mentoring curriculum, talks my father never had with me and talks my mother never had with me, that we use to train our mentors, to get them to have meaningful conversation, meaningful dialogue. These kids are starving for conversation, from dialogue, from attention, from caring adults. And most of us are what we are because there were caring people in our lives, nurturing us along the way. And unfortunately, we could not recruit as many mentors as we hoped, but we did get some, and we're continuing that effort of trying to mobilize what we're calling the Hope 500. We're only 490 away. It's only 490 away. We have 10. We only need 490 more. But Bob Hart is one of our faithful mentors that work with our youth over at Stonewall Jackson Middle School. The second performance measure has to do with the kids' academic improvement. And I'm a former engineer, and if you can't measure something, you can't improve it. And you can't measure it, you really don't know what you're doing. And so everything we do, we have some performance measure, some criteria to see if we can evaluate what progress are we making. And so we set our standards high because we know if we set them high, we may not reach them, but we might get a lot farther than what we would have gotten by setting it where we could get there and tell about what great work we're doing. So with the kids we had, and we had some problems because of some delays getting started, but we had some success. Almost 40% of all the students had an increase in their overall grade point average. And when you see what some of these grade point averages were, you can see that was pretty significant. With the best improvement at Stonewall, because this is our neighborhood, we know the principal, he was with us from day one. Huntington, that's not our community, so we had to go down and earn people's respect, earn their trust, show them that we were the real deal, and win the whole deal. But a lot of progress occurred at Camac as well because of some of the delays. Our staff at Camac was later coming on board. But Mr. Jasper Black, who's here, and he heads up our Huntington office, he did an incredible job because he basically was solo for most of that 6-month period and had as many as 70 kids he was trying to work with, keeping them from being suspended, keeping them from being expelled, trying to get them to class on time, and he had some great success, as you will see. The next slide showed the performance measure that dealt with school attendance. If you're not there, then you're not going to get the work. And so we try to get the kids to come. 51% of all the kids had at least a 90% attendance rate. Our goal is that 75% of the kids that we work with will be at school at least 90% of the time. And we're working on that every day. The next performance measure dealt with disciplinary referrals. And that's another major problem. If you spend most of your time in the office, you're missing instruction. 95% of the kids we had no more than 3 disciplinary referrals. And there was a 24% increase in the number of you who had no disciplinary referrals. And that's a goal that we have for the kids. We incentivize our program. And I tell kids, I don't give you anything for doing nothing. So you can earn privileges with us. And so they can earn stipends, gift certificates based on their academic performance, based on having no more than 3 disciplinary referrals and no suspensions or expulsions, and based on some other criteria that says if you take care of your business, then there's a benefit and there's a reward for it. And so that's getting a lot of interest from the kids as well. One of the big things there is you see down at Camac that 98% of the kids had no more than 3 disciplinary referrals, and 86% of them had no disciplinary referrals. And a lot of that was attributed to the work that Mr. Black was doing every day at the school with the kids when they got there and trying to keep them on task. And so we commend them for that work. The third one, we weren't able to measure it. I didn't realize the schools no longer capture unexcused absences. They just say kids are out so much, they're just not here. They're here or not here. So that's no longer something that's captured. The next one dealt with suspensions, and almost 80% of the kids that we served had no suspensions. And we were happy about that. So in July, the program was expanded to additional schools, and the same criteria for the schools were the schools where there was a need. And we chose Chandler, Glenwood, and Piedmont elementary schools. These are year-round schools. They start the school on July the 8th, and then they have breaks during the year. And then we added J.E. Robbins Elementary School because in talking to the principals, we found out that a major problem with our kids in elementary school is transients, parents moving, parents getting evicted. And so 50% of the kids that start school at Piedmont on July the 8th will not be there June the 4th when school ends. And they may be in 2 or 3 different schools during the school year. And so in talking to the principal, we found out that these 4 schools seem to be where people play musical schools. And so by us being at the 4, then it doesn't matter where the kid is. We can try to track them during the entire year. Stonewall, one of the largest middle schools in the state, and it has these feeder schools from this community, which has a lot of challenges. And then Capitol High School, which is a large high school with a very large urban population, and a lot of challenges there, so we want to be there as well. The next slide shows the total. We have a total of about 290 kids that we're working with in these respective schools. We picked up 2 elementary schools in Huntington, Spring Hill, because of their academic performance. Guy and Dot is predominantly white school, but they have a lot of low-income whites, and they're not doing well academically. So we wanted to be there to see if we could help the principal there, Mrs. Evans, with them as well. Just quickly, and I'm going to get out of the way so the Barnett people can come. I did want to give you an idea of what the process is, because we have a process that our youth development specialists have to follow a pretty strict protocol and enrolling the kids, have to interview the kids, have to interview the parent, develop an individualized service strategy for each kid in terms of the goals, in terms of the expectations and so forth, and a family strategy. How can we help these families? How can we connect them with services that we provide and other services as well? On the next slide, and I'm not going to go through all of that, it just kind of shows what the specialists do and making that happen and trying to collect all of this data and this information so that we have a complete profile on these kids and that we can develop a plan that can best help them. Just flip 2 slides over, Heather, to the game plan, and I did want to spend just a minute here. Tony Gordon, who's back there at the controls, he's the head. He runs the in-school program, and so what he does is his staff, they get here every day before school starts, and they do their little huddling up together, and then he dispatches them to the schools, and they go to the schools, they check in, they get the attendants to find out which kids are there or not there. Our kids who aren't there, they get on the phone, start call to find out why they're not there. They didn't come back, and they sit in the classroom because they want to hear the instruction, they want to monitor the kids' attentiveness and their engagement in the instruction, and then they help the kids so they have opportunity, and then what we're trying to do is close what we call the instructional and the comprehension gap. The teacher's teaching here, the kid may not be getting here, and before the teacher figures it out, it may be too late. And so they're then checking with the kids to see how much they understood. Then after school, he established after-school programs at 3 schools that didn't have them, and then where they have an after-school program, we work with that program within that program. Jasper Black does the same thing in Huntington. The goal is that when that kid goes home, that someone has already helped them with their homework. Because in many of these families, there's no one in the house that can help them. They don't have the skills to do it. And so that's the goal. And the goal is to bring the parents in to get them help if we can help them, but we have to try to work with the kids who are willing to work with us. And so we think that we're going to have some tremendous progress at the end of this year because of the efforts, and we had tremendous support from the principals at Piedmont and Chandler and J.E. Robbins and Stonewall and Capitol. All the principals are 100% behind us. And I would encourage everybody, before you criticize the public schools, again, just go and see what they're doing. And go and see what they're up against in some of these schools. When they got to give the kids an alarm clock the first day of school because there's no one in the house to get the kids up. And kids come to school sleep deprived because they've been up all night because drug dealers and this type of thing's going on. And the kids, they have to feed the kids every day. I mean, they have a lot of challenges, and so that's why, as the community, we got to respond, because the schools we're working with, we think they're doing some incredible work. But some of the challenges they face as educators, it's larger than what they can manage themselves. So, just quickly, the other project we want to touch on is our alternative sentencing project. School system, schoolhouse, to the courtroom. Because with all of our efforts, some of the kids slip through. And some of the kids we may not never touch. And they're before a judge or probation officer. Between 700 and 800 a year that appears at some stage, at the intake stage, or it's set formal or what have you. But they're there for whatever reason. And them being there signals that there is some problem that they're having for whatever reason. According to Charleston Police Department, there are 16 known gangs with some activity in the city of Charleston, with some 250 to 300 members, with some presence on the west side and east end as being their primary domains. So we believe one of the best gang resistance strategies, is you win the hearts of these young people early, and even those who are teasing with some of this activity, you try to provide them with some alternatives. And so we've worked over the years with the Kanawha County Court, Probation Department, DHHR, and Juvenile Services, and the schools, parents, and youth. This is where these kids appear, and sometimes they're beneath the radar screen, but they're ticking time bombs that's waiting to happen, and they're in our community. And so we are greatly encouraged by some work that you can hear about a little bit later that we're working on with the juvenile. The other thing is with alternative sentencing, normally it's not court mandated. Now, a project we're working on that might change. But a lot of times it's recommended, the kid is referred, and then we just try to connect with them. We visit them, we go to the house, we go to school, we try to find them. On some occasion, it will be court ordered. They have to work with us and be in one of our programs. And then we keep all that data and report it back. And we've had some pretty good success with some of the kids we've worked with, as it's outlined there. And with some of the other kids, you do the best you can, and some kids just slip through. As I share with my staff all the time, I say there are times that we sort of feel like that we're a college linebacker, and here comes Pat White, and we got him zeroed in. I know I got him, and we right in front of him, and he gets around us, and that's what we feel sometimes with these kids. We know who they are, and we've been with them. We know the whole situation, and we're right there. But we're unable to connect with them enough to get them to change their actions and change their behavior, and they end up in the system. But we don't give up on them there. We continue to try to work with them. So at this time, I want to bring on the Barnett people, and they're going to talk specifically about the ROC project. We call it ROCS, Reentering Our Community Successfully, and basically it focuses on kids that are incarcerated and have been committed to the Western Division of Juvenile Services, and they'll come and they will share how we're doing on this project. And
Good morning. I'm Rhonda Sturgill, and I'm with Barnett Inc., and this is Liz Barnett. She's going to work the PowerPoint, and we're going to basically explain to you what the ROCS project is and the successes to date from the ROCS program. ROCS stands for Reentering Our Communities Successfully, and it is fully funded by SAMHSA. It is a 4-year federal grant that began in October of 2004 and runs through September 2008. And it actually covers 7 rural counties in West Virginia: Boone, Cabell, Jackson, Kanawha, Lincoln, Logan, and Putnam. Most of the clients are from Cabell and Kanawha counties. In fact, initially, Cabell County was not included. And when we saw so many of the clients were returning to Cabell County, we went back and asked for permission to add Cabell County to the counties served. The ROCS program aids incarcerated youth to successfully re-enter their communities upon release. And the ROCS staff actually participate in mentoring. And this is the ROCKS program is not court-ordered or court-mandated. And this has proven to be one of the really strong points of the ROCKS program. They go to Salem and Davis detention centers monthly and mentor juveniles before they are released. So they already establish a relationship that on release, then they will often join the ROCKS program. They also provide monthly transportation for parents of juveniles who are incarcerated, and they've had a lot of success with juveniles saying they want them to contact their parents so that they can be brought to visit them. The ROCKS staff provides substance abuse therapy, case management, education including GED preparation, or if the juvenile is returning to high school, help with enrollment into college, as well as in job training. We have several clients who are in the Job Corps. They also assist with job placement, filling out applications for jobs, interviewing skills, and then provide family therapy too. ROCKS is a collaborative program. There are offices in both Charleston and Huntington, and again, one of the offices is here, and the other one is in the Douglas Center in Huntington. And the second one was added in Huntington for the simple reason that there were many clients going back to Cabell County. Partner agencies include West Virginia Division of Juvenile Justice Services, the Hope Community Development Corporation, Prestera Center for Mental Health Services, and then Daymark. To date, 123 clients will be admitted. To date, 92 clients have been admitted, and this is 100% of the ROCKS intake goal. Most of the clients are males, 78 of them, 14 are females. 4 are between the ages of 20 and 21, 88 between the ages of 15 and 19, and actually only one of those is 15, so most of the clients are ages 16 to 19 that are involved in the program. And only 15 have completed high school or a GED equivalent. This graph is just a county profile of the ROCKS clients, and as you can see, there are a few from Jackson, Boone, Lincoln, and Putnam, but most of them are from Cabell, and then secondly from Kanawha. So those are the two highest counties. The race of the ROCKS clients, 59% of them are white or Caucasian, and 32% are African American. 3% are either Asian, Hispanic, Latino, or Alaskan Native. In terms of ROCKS client placement, where they are and what they're doing, 43% are employed, about 24% are unemployed, and then there are 7% are in high school. There's one that is deceased. There are several in college, several working on their GED, 2% are in the Job Corps currently. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where they are and what they're doing right now. Some of the ROCKS successes. The first one is compared to other grantees, and these are other URP grantees, what they consider youthful offender reentry programs. ROCKS does extremely well. At intake, ROCKS has 100% of their intake compared to 78% of the others. And for 3-month and 6-month follow-ups, ROCKS has consistently met the 80% goal, and that's the target goal for the URP grantees. So they've been, and we credit that to the ROCKS staff and their real persistence in finding these clients. Another success is the reduction of drug and alcohol use. The first bar graph up there basically says at 3 months, 42% of the ROCKS clients are completely abstinent from drug and illegal drug and alcohol use. And at 6 months, there are still 32% of the clients that are not using alcohol or drugs. And then we look at it in terms of did not use illegal drugs. Still at 6 months, 54% of them are not using illegal drugs, and 45% are still not using alcohol. So that is a great success for those clients. When we compare this to high school seniors across the United States, the ROCKS clients are doing extremely well too. In this graph shows the number using marijuana, illegal drug use, and then using alcohol. For example, using alcohol, 80% of high school seniors are using alcohol, and 48% of the ROC's clients. So they have done well compared to other high school seniors. There's also fewer clients reporting involvement with the criminal justice system. 92 clients were incarcerated at admission, and currently 9 have been reincarcerated after 6 months. So that's around a 10% recidivism rate, which is very good for this population we're working with. Some unique challenges that ROCS has to deal with. One of them is that the juveniles are not court-ordered to participate. And when you looked at the ROCS program compared to other grantees, many of the other York programs are court-ordered or court-mandated. So this is a unique challenge. It's really difficult to deliver services to 7 rural counties. Our ROCS case managers and therapists sometimes will travel hours to track down one client. There's a lack of parental support, and clients return to the same environment. Many of these clients are returning to an environment where there is drug use, where maybe there is no employment. So it's the environment that they go back to after they're released. And finally, the impact of ROCS. This figure is going to show you the jail costs reduced for, we're tracking 70 clients who have a 3-month follow-up. At admission, or before admission, when the clients are incarcerated for 3 months, the cost is about $774,900. If we figure the 6 clients incarcerated before the 3-month admission, there have been 3 subsequently incarcerated since then. That's about $35,424, which leads us to a savings of approximately $739,476 by keeping these juveniles from being reincarcerated. Based on the successes of the ROCS program, basically it needs to continue after federal funding ends in 2008. And that's our presentation. If you all have any questions, we'd be glad to answer. Or does anybody have any questions? Okay. Thanks. Is this you?
Nobody has any questions? Wow. Yeah, one of the neat things, and if I could identify, this project works. It works because of the uncommon commitment of the staff, and that uncommon commitment and the uncommon support that we have. You know, Heather Roberts, who technically works with Prestera, but she's located here with us, and she's our full-time therapist, and she's there to do assessments and get kids into treatment and do whatever she can do to encourage kids to abstain from using alcohol and tobacco and drugs and so forth. And then Clyde Tyler and Parnell Legros, they're the case managers of Kanawha County, and then another young man in Cabell County. And what they do is incredible. I mean, they do things that I don't know many people will do. And sometimes we have to sit them down and say, look, you guys, y'all really be careful. They go into these projects. They go into these neighborhoods and communities. Our grant requires us to see these kids. We have to see them on certain frequencies. We have to do this, what's called a GAIN, a global assessment of individual need, 3.5-hour interview, and they get them done at 100%. And they're tracking these young men and women down to try to get them in the Job Corps, get them in job training programs, and things like that. And the kids know. And then the other thing they did, which was a stroke of genius, is that when we started a little over 3 years ago, we couldn't get any parents to go to see their children. That was sad. We offered them free transportation and a meal. And I think the first 1 or 2 times we had maybe 1 or 2 parents, and we probably had 40 kids that we were working with that were incarcerated. So they started working with the kids, and you got to call your parents. You got to encourage your parents to come to see you. And then they started calling the parents that your child needs to come to see you. I need you to come to see them. And they just kept working at that. And now they normally have a van full. We have so many parents going, we have to alternate right now. That we do 1 month, we take the Kanawha County parents, the next month, the Cabell County parents. And so we're talking to Mr. Denny Dotson at Division of Juvenile Services, and about possibly they might take 1 month. So every month we can take parents from both counties. So, and we think that's a real key piece in the success of this project. Okay. Anything else? All right. Before we go any further, there's a young lady here, and I want her to come up here. I'm not going to embarrass her, but this is one of our young people we've worked with, and but I do want you to have just a brief comment. I want you to tell them, just a little bit about yourself and about working with Miss Levita.
The Hope Development Service made me get my GED.
They
They helped me get my GED. They have really been there for me and my family. Reverend Watts, he preached at my sister's funeral about a week ago. He really got to us. He's just always been there for us in the community.
Could you tell them a little bit about how you and I first met, when we first connected? You ain't got to give all the details, but where were you, and how did we deal with that situation?
I was at Tiger Morton, and Reverend Watts and Levita came to see me for a little while. We talked about some things, and they actually went to court with me and got me on probation, which I didn't think I would get. Thought I would get incarcerated for at least a year. But they got me probation. They have been with me since then. I've been coming to church. Not like I should, but I've been coming to church, trying to
And you're going to go to college?
Yes.
That's right.
He's going to help me take my
right.
ACTs
That's
and get
right.
into college. So.
That's right. We're going to college. All right. Thank you, baby. I love you. Yeah. Lakeisha is a very, very intelligent young lady, and she passed her GED with high marks without going to school a whole lot. Okay, but she's college material, and she's going to go. And I just asked you to pray for her family. They had a tough situation with her sister's death a week or so ago, but she's doing good. She's strong. She's there for her mom, and her sisters, they're there for their mom, and we're just proud of her. We're so proud of her and the fact that she can turn this thing around, and she's going to be our poster girl. Amen. I'm not in church. I'm sorry, guys. I am in church, but this is not a church service. What I want to do now is I want to talk just quickly about another project that we're really excited about. And some of you got the opportunity to go over and to visit our building, and that's kind of a miracle. It's a miracle of miracles, actually. And I want to tell you briefly about this miracle because we never thought that we would have a building. And the Western Public Radio did a special on the condition of the west side of Charleston. High crime rate, high juvenile crime rate, prostitution, the whole thing. And they researched it for months, and then they added 3 15-minute episodes. And on the Friday, the final day, they featured some of the work we were trying to do. And a gentleman from Beckley, whom I know, but I had no idea he owned property in Charleston, Bill Luke, a friend of mine. We served on a state workforce investment board together. He called me and he says, I think I can help you guys. So make a long story short, he comes to Charleston and he said, I want you to see a building. And he takes me to see this building on Central and Hunt Avenue, which I pass all the time because my daughter stays right on Hunt. And he says, if you promise me you will use this building to help kids and whoever else you want to help in this community, then I will give you the equity that I have in the building, which was close to $300,000. And he says, if you can find someone to fund the difference, this loan that we have on it, it's yours. Make a long story short, I got called to a meeting with Western House Development Fund and to talk about something else. And I said, well, here's what's on my mind. And Mr. Joe Hatfield said, look, I'll talk to my board and see if we might be to help you if you guys are really serious about turning this community around. And so the Western Housing Development Fund has agreed to help us and to get the little piece of money we needed. The building's now paid for. We have the title to the building. But it gets better than that. There's a piece of property across the street that we wanted. And I called the real estate company, and they said, well, we want $60,000 for it. And I said, well, who's the owner? They said, well, we're not going to tell you. And so I said, well, I don't have 60 cents, let alone $60,000. So I called Mr. Loop. I said, well, do you know the guy that owns the property? He says, yeah, he's a friend of mine. He said, I'll call him and see what he might be willing to do. He calls the guy in North Carolina. The guy said, I've been thinking about giving it away, but I think I'm going to give it to another organization. but you tell his Reverend Watts to send me a letter. So I wrote him a letter. A couple of weeks later, I get a call saying he's coming to West Virginia, Labor Day. He wants to meet with me 9 o'clock. I show up here 9 o'clock. He comes in, he and his wife comes in, and he says, I believe that God is in everything, even in land. I didn't ask him for the property. He handed me the deed to the property, gave it to me. And then, it's got to be amazing. And so what ended up happening, then he told me the story why he gave it to me. He said 2 weeks ago, a couple showed up in my church, and they said they were from West Virginia. And I asked them where they lived. They said Charleston. They said, where do you go to church? They said the West Side. He said, do you know Reverend Watts? They said, yes. And he says he thought that was a sign that he should give us the building. So it's kind of amazing. I mean, give us the property. So we now have the building, and we have the property across the street that we're going to tear down that little raggedy house and garage and expand the parking. So we're real excited about it. We're real excited, but this is kind of the culmination of a vision and of a passion that this staff has had over the years to keep doing this work, because we thought something good could happen. And so our hope and our plans, if God is willing, is we're going to turn this into the Hope Youth Development Center. And we hope to do some great work, that we have a physical place where young people can come and be served. And we're working with the Division of Juvenile Services and Prestera, and with Daymark and Kanawha County Schools and other community-based organizations to say, if the kid gets to this place, then we have got to make it happen. We've got to lay aside our ego and our arrogance and all our territorial silos and figure out, how do we help these kids who made it to us? My staff can tell you, one, I'm very patient, but one thing I do not tolerate: you cannot tell a child who gets here that we can't help them. That's unacceptable, because we might be the last place that they'll go to. Our obligation is to help any child some kind of way if they get to us. So that's our vision for the building, and we're really excited about it. We're equally excited about this expanded partnership with the West Virginia Division of Juvenile Services, which has been tremendous. Mr. Humphreys has been great. Denny Dodson has been great. And Lana Robinson, who works in the organization, has been our contact person to make things happen for us. And so we have access to the facilities because DJS allows our staff to go into the juvenile correctional facilities and to meet with the kids while they're locked up. And we're notified within a day of the kids' commitment to DJS. And then within 3 weeks, my staff is there, and they go every 2 weeks to meet with the young people, to try to get them to buy into the aftercare plan, to try to get them to buy into what they're doing in industrial home and work with the counselors and so forth there. And then they connect with them when they get out to try to connect them back to the community. So that's a very, very busy slide, but basically we're hopeful through this partnership that we'll work even more close with DJS in the expanded role at this center. They will have a presence there. We'll be there together. They will be on the point to take the court referrals coming from Kanawha County Court of Probation and the young people coming out of incarceration. We'll be there to support them with support services and things that we do. And then we would take the referrals from the Kanawha County School. You know, say if Mr. Giles, as much as he hates to do this, every now and then he has to suspend the child from school. And if that's done, then while they're doing their suspension, they could come to our center. And we can get their homework off of the computer, and they can get their lessons done. So when they go back to school, then their homework is completed. See, that type, if a kid is on homebound, for example, if you don't know what homebound is, one of the principals in Kanawha County School have to expel a kid for 365 a year, safe school violation. Well, then, if the kid is under 16, we're obligated to provide them with education. It's homebound, so they might get 4 or 5 hours a week of education, but they're out all during the day. Well, we could have those kids that come to our center during their homebound period, and where they not only get that education, but other types of activities. That's what our vision is. Kids are on Oasis. Some of them are doing their education by computer because they're kicked out of school. But they need to be connected and socialized and around folk. They don't need to be at home, in many cases by themselves, and roaming the streets. So that's what our vision is for the center. And then lastly, we have a vision for the community, but it's all one. As I shared with you at the beginning, we believe there's youth development, it's family development, it's community development, which leads to economic development, which leads to renaissance and renewals of neighborhoods. And our passion is for the West Side. Now, we serve kids all over the county, but our passion is for the West Side of Charleston because 22,000 people, 40% of Charleston's population has a West Side zip code, the most densely populated neighborhood in the state of West Virginia. And it's a community that has a lot of challenges because of the dense population. 65% of all of Charleston's public housing is on the west side of Charleston. And then you have a considerable amount of Section 8 housing. And so you have this concentration of low-income people in their need in a tight space. And so but we're excited. The Charleston Urban Renewal Authority, as I mentioned earlier, they got this major project. It's coming to the west side. As I shared with you earlier, the 883 structures, 81% of them are residential. And so we're working very closely with my good friend Bob Hardy and some others to get a home ownership zone as a part of the Charleston Urban Renewal Plan, and they've agreed to it. And what that would mean is they're carving out certain parts of this plan to where the focus will be the rehabilitation and the building and construction of new houses. The Bob Hardy started 10 years ago. He had the vision before anyone else was thinking about it. You go down 2nd Avenue and you see all those new houses on 2nd Avenue. This is the man that built them with his own hands. And he used young people from this neighborhood. Some of the kids come out of incarceration. We would send them to him, and he would bring them on his crew, and we would try to figure out how to pay them a little something to try to get them to learn how to do something. That's the vision that we have. We're now at this point, we've got to put skills in these young men and young women's hands. We got to teach them how to do things, and if we can get them in this home rehab and construction, now they can have the pride of helping to rebuild the community, and they're rebuilding houses that their families and their friends can live in. So we're working very diligently at that, and got a call yesterday from the Federal Home Loan Bank in Pittsburgh. They've heard about it because Congresswoman Shelley McCapital's office called them, so they're going to come down and meet with us in December. And they want to be a part of what we're doing. They know the struggles on the west side of Charleston. So we're excited about it. We're having community meetings. We're gathering individuals who live in the neighborhood, who currently own their homes and want their homes rehabbed, who are renting. 56% of this community is renters. And so our goal is to turn that around, decrease the number of homeowners in the community, and do it in such a way that the people are involved in the process. We can bring someone in and build houses, but if we engage the people, these young men and young women, in building these homes and being a part of the process, they have a sense of ownership. If we can create this vision in the mind of this community that something can happen on the west side, that the community can be transformed, and people can succeed in their own neighborhood. And our vision is that these young people believe that I don't have to go somewhere else to be successful. I can be successful here. I can be successful in my own community, my own neighborhood. And so that's what our hope is. We're excited about the fact that Kanawha County Schools has agreed in principle that they're going to build this school. The next school to be built in Kanawha County is supposed to be built at the Calvert Field site. We think that's important. If they build a state-of-the-art community school where community-based organizations have a presence in that school, and that school is now visible from the Kanawha Boulevard, and people can see that school, and that it can attract young families to want to be in the neighborhood. It might sound somewhat idealistic, but we think there's a time for idealism, and we've got to cast a vision that we can do better, and the people can do better if they have an opportunity to be a part of the process. And then the last thing that I just want to share with you is a part of that. You know, we're looking at the whole community. Bob Hardy and I, we get in our cars and we ride down every street on the west side. He's examining every structure, every house, what can be rehabbed, what needs to be torn down, how many vacant lots exist, can they be acquired, you know, can we build a house on this particular lot. We're looking at the commercial buildings because Cure got them identified. And we're talking to the Community Technical College, Dr. Kathy D'Antoni. They've agreed in principle that if we can find the appropriate building, that they will place a advanced manufacturing technology center on the west side of Charleston. And we have that agreement in principle, and we have our building, another building across the street that we're looking at. And if we can create the Hope Corner right there at Central and Hunt, to this hub of activities for job training, advanced manufacturing technology, youth development, family development, then we can do something inside the community itself. So, and then lastly, as I said earlier, I've got this passion, and I share this with you guys, this group here. I share with my church often, that if we listen to our pain, we will find our passion. And normally our passion is going to be close to where our deepest pain in our lives have been. And so I just shared it with you. I minister out of the pain that I had as a kid growing up, and the pain and suffering I saw my mother go through. So my heroes in the neighborhood are the single moms, because one of 7 kids in the neighborhood, that was the characteristic. But our mothers made us feel so special, and the community was right there to support us. And so we never thought that being poor or being black or being in a single female household, we never thought that was in any way a hindrance that would hold us back in any way, because that little community made us feel so special. And so I named the organization Hope after my hometown, Mount Hope, West Virginia, the place that nurtured us and that made us want to do the right things and made us want to make them proud. That's what our hope is, that we can build into these kids that they will want to make their parents proud, or if the relation there is so strained, other adults who've given to them, that they will want to make them proud of them. Does that make sense? And we believe it can happen, and we believe that it is happening. I want to put one young man on the spot, then we're going to be out of here, but I want Clyde, Tyler, if you would come up here and just kind of briefly share, because Clyde was one of the first young people that we started working with when I had a head full of hair. And if you could just kind of briefly share a little bit about your pilgrimage and what happened and how you ended up here with us. Okay. I think it'd be interesting for the people to kind of hear what can happen.
When I was attending Roosevelt Junior High School, I think it was from the years of 1992 to 1994, Pastor Watts had come over with a couple other gentlemen, and they formed what we call the Black Male Coalition. And that's where I first and foremost met Pastor, and we developed a good relationship. And they would actually come in, they would mentor us, and they would also take us on field trips throughout the state. And one that I remember very vividly is when we went to Sutton Lake, and there was a lot of good memories from that. And from that time, we hadn't seen each other for quite a while. And upon me graduating at UC in 2004, Pastor Watts offered me a job to come over and work and to give back to the community. And since then, I've been here working for the last 3 years, trying to connect with young people, trying to give back to the community. I see a lot of hurting kids in our community, and it bothers me. And it bothered me then, and it still bothers me. But it just feels good to be a person that can serve the community and work along with Reverend Watts. And that's what I've chosen to do with the last 3 years of my life.
Let's share this little detour.
Okay. Okay. Basically, also he wants me to share about the football career that I had. I was an all-state football player here in the state of West Virginia at Capitol High School, and I was practicing for the North-South game back in 1998, and I suffered a severe injury to my left shin bone, or the tibia. I had a compound fracture that ended my career, and after that, it was very tough for me emotionally. It's just like some of you all that built a life living, you wanted to do a career. Just imagine that career being taken away from you, something that you really had a passion for, something that you really wanted to do, and it devastated me. And the reason I can connect with a lot of the young people in the community is because at one time in my life, believe it or not, I felt hopeless. I felt very hopeless, and I felt like my whole world has just turned upside down. One minute I'm up here, I have a full scholarship to go to Eastern Kentucky University, and in a blink of an eye, all that's taken away. It's all gone. And it took me a long time to really get myself back on track. And fortunately, I was able to connect with some good people in the community. My parents are good people. They supported me. And unfortunately, a lot of our young people, they don't have that. When they are feeling like their world has been turned upside down, when they feel like they've been hurt, a lot of times they go over into the deep end and go even further, and there's no hope for them sometimes. And that's where we come in, and we try to say, hey, there is hope. There is hope for you, and we're trying to be that person or those people that will hopefully bring them back to where they need to be and get them going where they need to go. So, all right. You're quite welcome back.
Anybody have any questions? Because at this time, I'm going to asked a friend of mine if he would come, Mr. Rustin Seaman, and I want to give him a couple of minutes. You need to hear from him. You need to hear about what he's doing. It's one of the most incredible things that's happening in the state of West Virginia. And I remember several years ago when I was invited to come to Philippi to hear my hero, Dr. John Perkins. I said, they're playing a joke on me up there. Perkins not going to be there. They're going to have a videotape, something like that, and they're going to get a bunch of people come. He's not going to be there. But sure enough, he was there. Because I said nothing good could take place in Philippi. I mean, there's nothing up there. I mean, there's nothing up there, you know. But I went up there, and to my utter amazement, I felt one of the most incredible works that I've seen anywhere in the United States of America taking place on a mountain in Philippi. And I want him to come and kind of share briefly about his work and about an opportunity that's going to be launched from West Virginia. A national effort going to be launched from West Virginia.
That was Pastor's attitude was a true Charlestonian, right? I just wanted to encourage everyone that in West Virginia there's a lot of good things happening, and just people are disconnected. Abraham Lincoln once said that if you only have 45 minutes to cut down a tree, you better spend 40 minutes sharpening your axe. Well, I don't have 45 minutes, so I only got a couple, but I would like to say that it's a joy just to be here. Kind of providence, is I'm much believer that, you know, there are no mistakes. God doesn't create us with a lack of purpose. He gives us a purpose. For 27 years ago, I showed up here as a hitchhiker. From Nebraska, and now I'm a mountaineer by choice. And in a tiny little community, a lot of people don't think we can change the world, but the world can be changed. The way we cross the street every day, I've been working in a small little neighborhood day in and day out. Part of what is neat to see this gathering is we're all gathered here to try and build a better world for children. It's really good to know that we have leaders in our community that'll care enough, you know, to stop and listen. The solutions aren't, it doesn't take rocket science to know what it takes to succeed. We all got to love more each other. We got to invest more in our kids. It's winter time, and as a boy from Nebraska, I never learned about keeping a fire and stoking the stove. So I've always been fascinated about all the different contraptions people use to stay warm every winter. And we do a lot of home repair work. Very exciting to hear about revitalization here. And I remember being in a guy's trailer in the middle of the woods in a little neighborhood, and he had his stove kind of chained up in the air halfway. You know, it was on chains, and he had a fan underneath it with the wind blowing around. And I thought, man, that guy's pretty innovative. How in the world did you ever figure out how to get your stove up in the air? And he said, well, it was simple. I had a lot of chain and didn't have very much pipe. And I think sometimes in our state, all of us feel like we don't have enough resources. And I can remember whining as I prayed, you know, there's just not enough. There's too many problems. So in the plains, you have a person called a scout. And the scout's always out there just kind of looking who's out there that could help. There wasn't any organization in the yellow pages that I could find that was in rural America that would be concerned about our little condition in Barber County, West Virginia. But a man came into my life by, you know, nothing's by accident, by providence, and he told me about an organization called World Vision. And they only happen to be the planet's largest organization helping rural communities in 100 countries of the world. I just said to myself, well, if they're helping in 100 countries in the world, they ought to be willing to help here in West Virginia. So just simply by writing a letter, and then 25 years later, World Vision now is bringing what it knows internationally here to the United States. We've been at work for the last 8 years developing little models, and they're launching a national rural initiative. It's really neat that the home office for the rural initiative for World Vision in the United States is here in West Virginia. We're working on a process to bring resources. It's a little known secret. Every year for the last 3 years, we've distributed about $10 million worth of brand new supplies that come from corporations. The IRS is our best partner. Companies get tax breaks to give products to organizations and to families all across the state. So it's just exciting to try and get connected. We're excited about what the next 25 years will bring. We're excited about actually trying to get involved. And Matthew now has a building, so he's been out. He's peddling his program up in Barber County, West Virginia. And we're working on a little project to actually bring corporate supplies. I remember 7 winters ago, being very excited. We got a company that gave us the plastic product that you put over the windows to keep the cold air out. When getting involved with World Vision, they don't look for that. They went to corporations. Simonton Window Company is actually the largest vinyl window producer in the nation. They're headquarters here in West Virginia. Just last year, they donated over $4 million worth of windows. And so we're no longer given plastic to put over windows, we're given real windows. So all I'm here to say is sometimes what we think isn't possible. Scripture says if you give, it'll be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. 27 years we started this little deal in a little neighborhood, and last year we literally saw 195 tractor trailers of brand new supplies make it to a little warehouse called the Storehouse in tiny little Philippi, West Virginia. And it's just the beginning of what we believe God will do, and we're just very hopeful that God will connect us down here so we could not miss some of those. So thanks, Matthew. It's a 40,000 square foot warehouse, and again, we have 1,600 families. We have 300 organizations in 40 different counties that actually got to drive to Barber County. We want you to drive up there and buy a sandwich while you're there and spend a little bit of your money, while you're there. And it's a self-sustaining operation. The IRS allows you to pay a handling fee for the cost of it, so it's fully self-sustaining. It's a business model, a ministry. A lot of people question whether, faith-based leaders can run a business operation. Well, we do it with a ministry heart, and we're looking for more people to come around those kind of models that are marketplace-driven. There are a lot of wise and intelligent people here, in our state and in our communities. It's trying to get what you do every day and plug it into the community, teaching those skills to young people. And who knows what kind of world we can build if we all focus well. Thanks.
In the spring, after they thaw out, we'll probably do an excursion, take some of y'all up there so y'all can see the storehouse. Just incredible to see. It looks like a mini Lowe's store, all this product they have. And so if God is willing, Bob Hardy, who's my construction guy, we want to put together a building construction training group. And one of the first things we want to do is teach some of these young men and women, how to change doors and windows and put insulation and attics and crawl space. We can train them because most of these houses on the west side, the windows are just horrific. And that in itself would do a couple of things. Number one, it'll put a skill in the kids' hand that they can do, and they can do it in their community. Secondly, it will help to upgrade the housing stock. Just the physical appearance of the housing stock is automatically upgraded with new windows and if you got new doors. And thirdly, it puts money in the pocket of the homeowners because many of them are losing a significant amount of money out the door and through the windows because they're so energy inefficient. That little simple thing right there is what we're going to try to get started sometime here soon. And then from that, we hope to build the traction as we get momentum to develop a full-fledged building and construction training crew so we can take on just about any rehab or new construction on the west side. And we think it can happen, and if God is willing, that it will happen. So things are just kind of lining up and coming together in a way that we could have never made it happen. So we're really excited about it. At this time, before we depart, I'm going to ask if the chairman of our board, Hope Community Development Corporation, Mr. Tim DePiro, would come. And I think maybe he and John Ballinger may want to tag team. He signed you. He's delegated. Okay. But anyway, he's going to give you an update on a project that John Ballinger has been kind enough to kind of pull together some key people from the community at the United Way normally on every Friday at 8 o'clock as we talk about trying to pull together a juvenile justice task force to convene a juvenile justice summit.
Thank you, sir. This is a pretty exciting day for me. I'd say it's probably about 15 years ago. I was taking Matthew to lunch. We'd go get Chinese down near the mound there in South Charleston, and I'd drop him back off at Union Carbide. And he kept thinking he had a great job down there. I think he was a big shot. Let's put it that way. At any rate, he was sharing all this passion, and I was trying to catch on to it, and I couldn't stop hanging around him and trying to learn something from him. And it's infectious. I'm sure many of you are here because of his passion, and And then we were together visiting a friend of ours, John Cook, who runs an orphanage and other things down in Mexico, and he asked John to pray for him because he thought he was going to make the move and go full time into the ministry and into this hope kind of passion that he's got. And to see all that he's accomplished and still wants to do is really exciting. And with, as he mentioned, John Ballingy at the United Way, and as with Matthew and others have kind of coordinated us getting together for about 2 or 3 months now, almost every Friday, because you just can't get together one time or 2 times and say, well, here we got this problem, we got that problem. And we've got the juvenile probation, the judges, Walker's been there, we've got prosecutor's office been there, the public defender's office been there, people from Board of Education, from private organizations like Daymark and others, and council churches, and all these people are coming together. Newt Thomas from the business sector saying, we all have one thing, which is what I'm encouraged about, is everybody cares about trying to make something better. All these folks who work hard in the system want it to be better. They want to see better results, and they're working hard. There's been some good results, but they want to do better, and they're putting territorial stuff aside and saying, okay, what can we do? And one of the things I think that's been mentioned is we may have bridged something by just getting together and talking, which is saying, okay, we need to use the hope model and the trust that they've got with these kids and the relationship building that they've got, and somehow link it with the court system, and so that we can link them the two together. And it looked like that was going to be impossible, but there's been some communication going on, I think some breakthroughs, and we're really excited about that. We've been the original idea was to build a summit, have a kind of a big meeting, maybe not just, we've talked about taking it from just a local summit to maybe a statewide summit, have the governor maybe be involved, and get a Judge Bell, who's been doing some innovative and some remarkable things down in New Orleans or in Louisiana after Katrina, and maybe get him as a guest speaker. But we don't want to just have a summit and just to have some people feel good, and we really want to share and learn, and so we're continuing to meet, and we'll continue to meet so that we can do the kinds of things that we've seen here with this young lady and other people with ROCK's program, and make that start working for more folks in our community. I was just really excited to hear about how you're doing, and just to see the successes. That's what we want. That's what the big thing. He talked about his past. My dad turns 92 tomorrow. He's not doing too well, but I can't even measure his value to me in my life. And when I think of these kids, and so many of them who don't have a father, and the burden that's put on their mothers, it makes me want to do something. And I had someone attack somebody saying, how come he's not like Tiger Woods, and how come he's not like Michael Jordan? He's attacking some athlete. I said, I don't know, because he's not, but I said he didn't have a father 24/7 like those 2 individuals did, and I say that means a lot. And but like Matthew says, these kids don't have and will not have, and so somebody's got to step in. And so we hope through this summit not only to be attacking the court, the folks that are coming into probation and the court system, but we need to make this mentoring thing from the prevention side a lot stronger. And there's some ideas that we're going to kick around. We're going to take one problem at a time. We got into these meetings, and it got to where we were trying to attack so many different angles. Right now, we're trying to work with the kids that are coming into the juvenile system, but then we're going to hopefully keep going. So this thing isn't just a quick thing and we're out. But I'm probably talked too much. We are going to build towards this summit, hopefully to share and spread ideas that we all can benefit from, because all of us, that's what's really been great, John. I know you feel the same way. What's great about these meetings is you can tell everybody cares and wants to make a difference and wants to improve things. We don't want just the status quo, because we know we're not having as much success as we want to have. And so with these programs and with caring individuals like the folks that are working for Hope and caring folks in the system, we can make a difference. Thanks a lot.
Our last presenter is my good friend, Reverend Dennis Sparks, the Executive Director of the West Virginia Council of Churches. Has been just a tremendous source of encouragement to me personally and to our organization, and the vision that he has to just bring people together to try to do the right thing. And one of the projects that he and I have been talking about is what can we do from the community side to support the Washington Department of Corrections? Because I believe that if we don't come together to figure out a way to keep people out of prison, to help people who come out of prison to effectively transition back to the community and not recidivate, that we're going to bankrupt this state and eventually the nation. And that's not an hyperbole. It's not an exaggeration. You just look at the numbers. The numbers themselves will support that. So rather than just continuing to regurgitate the same thing over and over again, he and I and some others have been talking about ideas. What can we do? How can we support the Department of Corrections? How can we support the governor? So Dennis is going to come and kind of share some ideas. He's been working on this for several years and has some ideas around convening a summit to deal with the corrections and the overcrowded situation we have there, and the possibility of linking these two together in a 2-day summit of juvenile and then the adult system. Reverend Sparks.
Thank you, Reverend Matthew Watts. It's great to be here today and to listen to the presentation. And my job is to put forth a juvenile summit and then an all corrections summit. When we sit here today and listen to the good things, the scripture that comes to mind is, I'm allowed to do that in this church, Matthew. When the foundations are crumbling, it's a question, what will the righteous do? That's what the psalmist asks. We're seeing a good example here of what the righteous are doing when the foundations are crumbling all around us. The corrections foundations are crumbling because the societies are crumbling. And when we sit around the room, we see a lot of good things happening. I expect everybody in this room could talk about an agency or a school system or a teacher or a principal or a pastor or a service agency in this state that are doing good things and even making a difference in the lives of individuals. And that's great, and it needs to continue. But what we find is, as Reverend Watts talked about all these systems, beginning with the family system and all the way through our society, the systems are breaking down. And the biggest part of the systems breaks down is the link between our systems. And so we've been talking to Secretary Spears. You've seen his name up here on the slides from DMAPS, saying we want to have, and will he support, a corrections summit under the jurisdiction of the governor, who has the authority in this state to pull all parties together. And while I've been talking about that on the adult side, a bunch of people have been talking about it on the juvenile side. And it all fits together. Because we have a choice in this state. We're going to spend the money. We're going to spend, he's talking about we will break ourselves. When we first started going to DMAPS and writing reports and criticizing and then saying, hey, you're doing some good things, they're saying it's going to, if we have to build a new prison, $120 million. Now that figure exceeds $200 million. So we're going to spend the money. And that money will eventually have to be spent again, and that's when we're going to break this state, if we don't turn it around. The governor sees that. And we think we've got him on board to make that commitment. And if he's sitting in that chair today, that's what we're going to do. Say, Governor, we got your commitment, so we'll get him. But we don't have to worry about that. But we need all your commitments as well. That we need not just a summit for the sake of a summit, but to get all parties, all decision makers together to say, where do we need to bend? Where do we need to move, do things differently? So we put this system back together that makes a difference, and we'll see it all flow together. That's what the Council of Churches' job is. We're not a service agency in the sense that we work directly with kids at very valuable work. We're an agency in the sense to help pull it together, help work on the public policy side, and bring the faith-based element into it. And that's our job, and that's why this is such an important task. And I thank you all for being here today, and I thank Reverend Watts for all that he's doing in the leadership in this whole thing.
I'd like to give Mr. Dale Humphreys an opportunity if he could come, if he would, please. Mr. Dale Humphreys is the director of the Western Division of Juvenile Services, and so he has the authority over the juvenile correctional facilities at the Industrial Home for Youth in Salem and Davis, and also I think 10 or so detention centers. And he's been a great supporter since he's been on board, and we're just excited about the expanded partnership that he has directed Mr. Denny Dotson and his staff to work on with us. Mr. Humphreys, thanks for coming, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to take a minute to also support Reverend Watson, all his work that he's done for the youth in Charleston area and Cabell County, and to express my opinion on the day reporting centers that we're embarking on in the near future and across the state in West Virginia. We are very heavily involved in this. We feel that this is the wave of the future. This is the way that it's going to be done properly and most efficiently. We're looking in several counties across the state, in Hancock County and Princeton, Huntington, Charleston, and we support that at 100%. And with this, we can keep the children basically in their communities, in their residence, working with their families and working with a collaborative effort with churches, schools, vocations that will help bring the juveniles across to an area where they probably haven't had the opportunities. So with that, I'd just like to say I totally support Reverend Watson in his efforts, and any support that Juvenile Services can give him or to any other member of this party, we'd be more than happy to do so. So with that, we're standing here with you in partnership with you. Thank you.
Appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Any questions or comments before we depart? I want to thank all of you for coming. I know it's Friday, and for you to carve out this much time, I really appreciate it. I want to thank you all for your support, because we've worked with a lot of you in different venues, whether it's in the schools or a juvenile referee, Judge Dews, or Judge Walker Bailey, or Jim Kane and Mr. McLaughlin, and the probation officers who've been very helpful in educating us and helping us to understand the system. And we appreciate all the support that we've got in the community. This is a defining moment, I believe, for this community, and a defining time. And I think that we got an opportunity to respond in a way that sends a statement and a message to the youth of this community that we value them. There's a place for them. As I've shared with groups before, part of the problem today is that we don't really have a clear vision for young people. We don't know exactly where they fit. In an agrarian society, when the economy is driven by manual labor and farming, well, we know where they fit. They're part of the workforce and the labor force at a very early age, and they're part of learning the skills that's necessary to do those type of tasks. But in a high-tech, sophisticated information age, well, we don't know where they fit. And so we have to create a vision for young people in terms of where they fit and how we help develop them to really take over the mantle of leadership, from us as we move on, because I made a commitment to young people of this church, basically, and I hope that God will help me keep that commitment. To our 6-year-olds, I told them, I'm with you until y'all graduate. So I made a 15-year commitment to be here at this church and to serve this community till the first graders graduate. I'll be 67, and I'll be through then. I'm going to write about all I've learned and try to leave some behind. But I've made that commitment. If God allows my health to hold out that long, that's what we want to do. See if over the next 15 years, if we cannot see transformation taking place in this community, where the West Side truly becomes the best side, the envy of the county and even of the state. Lastly, I want to thank the staff. I have an incredible group of people. I think the best in the country, and I travel all over the country. And I would not trade the staff that I have here. If y'all could just stand so that people can know who you are. The staff of people that work. Y'all remain standing. Just 1 second, and we're going to be out of here. But this is an incredible group of people. Number one, their skill level and their education level is outstanding in terms of they all could be doing something else, and they could all make a lot more money than what they make working for me. Ms. Benita Perdine in the back there on my right, she's the project director for ROCKS, and she's kind of the chief of staff here to make things work. Her two compadres, Ms. Barbara Mosley and Ms. Mary Wesley, they've been together as a team, as a group of people for 25 years. They started work when they were 10. But they've been doing workforce development and job training through OIC for over 25 years as a team together, and we were able to inherit them. Mr. Parnell Legros from New York came to the University of Charleston, graduated, got his degree in finance, and did that for a while, but then caught a vision to come and help us with these kids. And you heard from Clyde Tyler, biology guy, but smart. They know how to work with these kids. Brother Robert Sewell, right there, just graduated from the University of Charleston, and he come to work for us. And then behind him, Brother Nico Edwards, he just graduated from UC as an accountant, but he come to work with us because of the passion for working with these kids. Greg Shaver's over here. He's sort of our statistician. He's kind of the intellectual horsepower. He's getting his PhD in something, but he got this passion for these kids in public policy and all this type of stuff. But he's a computer wizard. He's our technology guru. Brother Ed Powell, he's a finance guy, almost a PhD in finance, but he got this burden for these kids, so he's putting his skill all right here with us. Our Brother Jasper Black, I think he has a master's degree in leadership development or something, and a whole bunch of other degrees, but his heart is for kids, and so he's giving it to these kids. And then Brother Bob Hardy, who's sitting down here, but I don't pay him, but he works for me. He's my construction guru, building trade construction. He's the one that's going to get this building remodeled for me, and he's the one who's got the whole plan for the West Side Revitalization Housing Plan. And then Brother Tony Gordon back there on the back, he sold the State Farm Insurance Agency to come and work for me, to be poor like everybody else in here. But it's incredible. And what he's doing, he took a group of girls 3 years ago, got them to commit to being in a year-round program. Basketball was the hook. 3 years later, they're the junior national champions of 12 and unders of the nation of the United States of America in Washington, D.C. But that's not the important part. The important part is they have a combined grade point average of 3.5. And they do community service every month. They're at the study table like they were in college 2 or 3 times a week. And they're here every week with him as he's mentoring them through a book written by my brother-in-law, Talks My Daddy Never Had with me. And then last but not least is Miss Levita Mcknight. And she's been with me the longest, the most compassionate person I know. And so for me, it's just a great privilege. It's a great privilege to lead and try to cast a vision for this group of people who sacrifice and who serve and who chase a lot of the crazy ideas that I sometimes come up with just out of my own passion to try to serve the community. So that's kind of where we are. And as I shared with you, we minister out our pain, and we all do things for whatever reason we got to do it. But for me, it's simple. One day I got to stand before Jesus Christ and give account to him for all the talents and skills and intellect he gave me. I got to give account to him for it. And I want to be to say I did the best I could to serve the people. That's what I want to be to say. And then I got to see my mama. And she want to know, what did you do for women like me? That's why I do what I do. And I just want y'all to know that. She want to know, what did you do for women that were like me? So for me, it's all about serving the people. And sometimes I'm a lightning rod, but the truth is everything to me. And if the truth is not told, we can't get anywhere. But we can tell the truth and then agree this is the way it is, and what can we collectively do? We can rebuild the spirit of the people. That's what I believe. We can rebuild the spirit of the people. And this community, it's not just the houses are broken down, the spirits of the people are broken. Because they don't believe that people really care enough to serve long enough and sacrifice long enough to see something happen. And that's why I'm honored to lead this group of people. And I'm privileged to serve with some of you in the community. Because I believe that Charleston can become the model city that the entire nation is talking about in terms of how we responded to the plight of low-income, poor children, single mothers, the homeless. We can become the model city. I believe that with all my heart. And with what God is doing in bringing World Vision, the largest relief organization in the world, God has brought them to West Virginia and Philippi, and now they're launching a national initiative to empower rural communities. We don't think that's no coincidence, and we're just glad to be a part of it. So Again, I want to thank you for coming. Thank the governor for coming. I know he was ill. The governor would like to give you some last remarks if you'd like to have them. I know that the governor, he has a tough day. He's trying to keep Morgantown from being burned down. Okay? And I know what he's up to. We all got a concern about this. As a matter of fact, Heather told me the other day she's going to go out and invest in couches. She said. But the governor had to be on a statewide radio program. He's trying to make an appeal to the students and everybody that's going to be anywhere near Morgantown. Let's act like we are really proud West Virginia mountaineers, and let's not have the whole world looking at us, while we go up in flames. And so we know he got an important job. Governor, come and have some closing comments before you go, sir.
I can't speak too much, but I'm going to just say a few things. I've been so impressed with what Maddie's been doing and all of you have done for so long. And when he came to me and when I first got elected governor and started explaining to me and showing me what was happening and the results, which was so encouraging, we spend an awful lot of our resources trying to reward, especially the Promise Scholarship, $42 million a year. 42 and growing. How about a child that never had a chance to have a start to even come close to getting a promise, but yet they tried to change your life through the Challenge Academy? What do we guarantee them? Those are the things I'm looking at now. How do we provide the next workforce for the 21st century with the people who have the ability and the desire, but no one's ever believed in them? How do we get them early enough to get them into an alternative education program that works, a skill level that'll attain the quality of life they want? Everything we're going to do this year in the legislature, as far as my agenda, is based around taking back the classroom. We've lost total control of our school system. Where's Mr. Giles? He's back there, and he knows what we fight every day. Everything I can do will be done towards that effort. I want, all you really see in the paper is that we need to pay a lot more money for educators for them to do their job better. I would like to pay educators more than anyone's ever paid an educator. But on the bottom line, if they don't have a nurturing environment that's safe, money won't change it. Money won't make them happy. Money will not give us the rewards that we want from a child to have a good opportunity and have a good basic education. Money won't change that. And I can tell you, if you get up in the morning and you're anxious about going to do what you do, when you get there, it's an environment that's rewarding for you, and it's a nurturing environment, and when you come home, you feel fulfilled.